It all began with a sound, the soft click of the backseat lock sliding into place behind me. We were parked in the farthest corner of the strip mall, where a flickering streetlight had been ignored for years. The air inside the car was warm, close, almost suffocating, with a faint scent of sweat mingled with something minty, probably from his gum. I was on my knees. One hand steadied itself on the armrest, the other pressed firmly against the seatback for balance. He was behind me, moving slower than I'd imagined, thicker than I'd anticipated. When he pushed in, I gasped, my breath caught somewhere between a curse and a plea. My forehead dropped onto the cool leather of the seat. I gripped the fabric harder, nails digging in as the tightness overwhelmed me. His hand slid under my shirt, tracing over my ribs and up to my chest. Not greedy, just steady, like he'd wanted this for longer than I could comprehend. It was as if he was afraid I'd vanish if he rushed. I could hear him breathing heavily behind me, controlled but broken into pieces. The windows fogged up quickly. My palm slipped slightly against the seat as he adjusted his angle. Deeper, slower, the stretch of him made me tremble. My legs shook uncontrollably. Instinctively, I tried to pull away, not to stop, but to process, and he held my hips firmly enough to keep me grounded. It was too much, yet I didn't want less. The car rocked gently with each motion, the tires creaking against the uneven pavement. In the distance, a car passed by a block away. I froze, my breath trapped in my throat. He leaned forward, pressing his chest against my back, his lips brushing my ear. "Are you okay?" I nodded. "It's a lot," I whispered. "I know," he replied, but he didn't stop. His rhythm slowed, deliberate and deep, forcing a curse into the seat cushion. My knees ached, my back arched, and then it hit me I came. Too fast, too intense, too loud. He covered my mouth gently with his hand, not rough, not dirty, just instinctive. I don't know if I moaned or sobbed into his palm. Maybe both. When it ended, we stayed like that for a moment. My body went limp, his weight heavy behind me, one hand still resting on my hip as though he didn't want to let go. I pulled my leggings up slowly, hands still trembling. Neither of us spoke. We sat in silence. I stared at the windshield, watching my breath clear a small circle of glass. Then it hit me, I thought I knew my boundaries until he crossed them. I'm 38. He's 21. He's my son's best friend, or was. Now I don't even know what to call him. He started showing up at our house about a year ago. At first, it was just rides home from school, shared headphones, late-night pizza. Then weekends, holidays, and eventually, one weekend when my son was out of town, he showed up anyway, forgetting the plans had changed. I should have turned him away. Instead, I asked if he wanted something to drink, and he said yes. That was 3 months ago. Now, here we are, in the back of his car, half-dressed and still too close. What would you do if the person who made you feel alive again was young enough to be your son's friend? How do you handle that kind of shame, that kind of longing? Because I felt it that night and every night since. And the worst part, it didn't feel wrong. It felt like being remembered, like someone saw me again. Even now, sitting here with my thighs still pulsing and my heart lodged in my throat, I know I crossed a line I can't explain. Not to my husband, not to my son, not even to myself. Before we dive deeper, do me a favor, like and subscribe. These stories aren't for everyone, but if you've read this far, you get it. The more you engage, the more YouTube shows these stories to others who feel the same, and that means more content coming your way. Let's begin. I used to disappear in plain sight. I did everything I was supposed to, packed lunches, paid bills, sent birthday cards to people I didn't even like. The house ran because I kept it running, but no one noticed. Not really. Not until him. Ethan, 21, lean and broad-shouldered, carried an energy that seemed older than his years. He and my son met during college orientation. They became fast friends. I remember shaking his hand the first time he came over, his grip warm, his smile easy, his eyes steady in a way that felt unusual for someone his age. I thought he was polite, attentive, maybe a little charming, but ultimately harmless. Months passed before I realized he watched me, not obviously, but quietly. Like when I walked out of the laundry room brushing hair off my neck, and his gaze lingered on my collarbone half a second too long. Or when I bent down to load the dishwasher and felt him shift slightly behind me as if he didn't mean to react, but he did. I ignored it. I tried to ignore it, but when a woman has been invisible for so long, being seen feels like oxygen. My husband worked long hours, distant in a way that wasn't cruel, just chronic. He'd ask if I needed anything from Costco but hadn't asked if I was happy in years, and I was. I didn't even know what happiness meant anymore. Ethan kept showing up. Even when my son wasn't around, he'd stop by to grab a charger, pick up his hoodie, or ask about dinner plans, always something. I should have told him to stop. Instead, I made coffee. We'd sit at the kitchen island, the same spot where my family used to gather for pancakes and Sunday morning laughter. He'd ask questions my husband hadn't in a decade. Do you ever think about doing something different? Were you always like this, calm? Do you ever feel stuck? I pretended not to notice how close his knee was to mine under the table, or how his eyes didn't wander when I wasn't wearing makeup. I started wearing looser clothes around him, skipping mascara, trying to look less noticeable. He didn't blink. Once I came home early from work and found him sitting alone in the living room, flipping through channels. He looked up when I walked in and smiled. "Didn't expect you this soon." "I live here," I said. "I know," he replied, scanning my face. "I just didn't mind waiting." That sentence landed somewhere deep in my chest, a place I thought had been sealed shut. After that, things changed. Not outwardly, not in ways anyone else would notice. But I started watching him back. The way his hand curled around a glass, the curve of his biceps when he carried groceries, the tone of his voice when he spoke softly, not to be seductive, but to be serious. He was so young, yet not. He talked about his childhood like it had just happened. He still called his mom when he wasn't feeling well, but there was a sadness behind his laugh, a wisdom beyond his years. And I wanted to comfort him. That's how I justified it at first. He reminded me of something I'd lost, a sense of possibility, of being noticed. One night I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs for water and found him on the couch. Apparently, my son had gone to bed early and let Ethan crash in the guest room. The TV was on low. He turned to look at me. I was in a robe, nothing underneath. I hadn't meant to be seen like that, but he didn't blink. He just stared as if the room had grown colder. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "No." I sat on the edge of the couch, far from him. We both stared at the screen, some movie neither of us were really watching. His hand rested on his knee. I could feel the warmth of his body radiating through the cushion. When I got up to leave, he touched my wrist, a light brush. "You're not crazy," he said. "For what? For needing more than this." I didn't sleep at all that night. And the next time he showed up alone, I didn't wait for my son to be there first. That's how the door opened. That's how it always opens, not with a bang, not with a breakdown, but with a shared silence. A look that lingers too long. A hallway that's just a little too quiet. And someone younger than you should ever want, who makes you feel like you're not done being desired yet. After that night on the couch, everything grew quieter, heavier. We didn't talk about what he'd said, but the weight of it hung in the air between us. He kept coming around, not as often, not recklessly, but when he did, something shifted. His footsteps slowed in the hallway. His voice dropped when we were alone. I noticed how he watched me when he thought I wasn't looking, reaching for something high in the cabinet, pulling my hair into a bun, standing barefoot in the kitchen after dark. He noticed everything, and I noticed him noticing. Once I was making tea late at night. My husband had fallen asleep in the recliner, the TV glowing blue in the next room. I turned off the stove light and stood in the kitchen, bathed only in the glow of the hallway lamp. Ethan appeared without warning. "Didn't mean to scare you," he said. "You didn't." He stood in the doorway, hands in his hoodie pocket, looking tired, a little damp from the rain outside. "Your son's passed out," he said. "He does that." He didn't come further in, but the way he looked at me made the space between us feel smaller than it was. "You good?" he asked. I nodded. "You sure?" I turned back to the counter, pouring my tea too fast. It sloshed. I cursed under my breath and wiped it with a dish towel. Then I felt it, not a touch, just nearness. He crossed the kitchen quietly, intentionally. He stood behind me now, close enough that I felt his breath catch when mine did. "You don't have to talk," he said. "I just wanted to be near you for a second." I closed my eyes. It was the most honest thing anyone had said to me in months. I didn't answer. I couldn't. He stepped back on his own, said goodnight, and disappeared down the hall. But my hands were still trembling when I brought the mug to my lips. The next day, I saw him through the window, shirtless, mowing the lawn, earbuds in. He didn't see me watching, or maybe he did. That night, I couldn't look my husband in the eye because the guilt was already inside me, even though it hadn't touched my skin. A week passed, then another. We kept orbiting, avoiding, returning. I kept telling myself I was imagining it until we were alone again. My son had gone out. My husband was working late. Ethan was supposed to help move furniture out of the garage. I brought him water. He was sweating, his shirt clinging to his back, hair damp, face flushed. "Thanks," he said, drinking too fast. Some of it ran down his neck. I watched it. "You okay?" he asked, eyes scanning me like I was the one out of place. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." He took a step toward me, then another. I backed up once until my hips hit the workbench. The garage light was dim, that flickering yellow bulb casting everything in an older, grainier light. He didn't touch me, but his face was inches from mine. "Say the word and I'll leave," he said, voice quiet. "You know that." I didn't say it. Instead, I looked at his mouth, and he looked at mine. Then we both stepped back at the same time, like someone had pulled a cord tight and let go. "This is insane," I muttered, brushing past him. "You think I don't know that?" he said, half laughing, half wounded. "You think I don't feel how wrong this is every second I'm around you?" I stopped and turned. "Then why don't you stay away?" "Because you keep letting me in." He was right. I still was. The silence swelled, hot, humid, heavy. I wanted to tell him to leave, to stop coming back, to stop looking at me like I was still someone worth ruining for. Instead, I left the garage. He didn't follow. But the next time he showed up, I didn't even pretend to be surprised because what we had wasn't an accident anymore. It was a choice we kept making, slowly, deliberately, every time we locked eyes and didn't look away. And the night it finally happened, there was no excuse left, just two people standing too close for too long. The house was quiet, carrying that late-night stillness that makes everything feel heavier. My husband was out of town for work, and my son had gone camping with friends. I should have been alone, but I was. Ethan was on the couch again. He'd come earlier to help fix the screen door that was always sticking. "I'll only stay a minute," he'd said. "Just want to make sure it latches right." That was hours ago. Now it was nearly midnight. The only light came from the stove bulb, casting long shadows across the kitchen tiles and bleeding into the hallway. I stood by the sink, rinsing a glass I'd already cleaned twice. I felt him behind me before I heard him. He didn't speak, just leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, hoodie off, t-shirt clinging to his chest. He looked young but not harmless. You okay? He asked. I nodded without looking at him. Liar. I turned. He didn't move, but the way he looked at me, it undid something. You should go, I said quietly. Yeah, he replied. I should. I didn't tell him to. My hand was still wet from the sink when he stepped toward me. I wiped it on the side of my jeans without thinking. He stopped in front of me closer than usual. His eyes searched mine like he was trying to find the last reason not to do this. You're not ready, he whispered. I swallowed. I've been ready, I said. I've just been pretending not to be. That broke it. He reached for my face, slow, reverent. His thumb traced my cheekbone like I was fragile, like I might run. I couldn't, I kissed him first. His mouth was warm, uncertain for half a second, then all in. His hands slid down to my hips, gripping tighter than they should have, pulling me in until my chest pressed against his. I felt the weight of him, all that youth, that urgency, that restraint fraying at the edges. We stumbled down the hallway, not frantic, just inevitable. I pulled him into the guest room, the only one with clean sheets. The blue glow of the hallway lamp leaked through the open door. I didn't close it. I couldn't even think. He kissed me again, deeper, slower. One hand buried in my hair, the other sliding under my shirt, not like a boy grabbing, but like a man learning. Tell me to stop, he murmured, voice strained. No, I said, don't. I pulled my shirt over my head. He froze for a second. His eyes dragged over my chest, my stomach, my skin that had stretched from childbirth, sagged from time, softened from disuse. He didn't flinch. He touched me like I was made of fire. His mouth found the side of my neck, then my collarbone. My hands fumbled with his jeans. He helped. They dropped to the floor. His breath caught when I touched him, thicker than I'd expected, heavy in my hand. He hissed through his teeth. Jesus. I guided him onto the edge of the bed and climbed into his lap, knees on either side of his thighs, palms braced against his shoulders. The first time he slid inside me, I gasped, tighter than I'd prepared for. My body clenched around him, too much, too fast. His hands gripped my waist, eyes locked on mine like he was watching every flicker of reaction. You okay? He asked, breath shaky. I nodded. Don't move, just stay. We stayed like that for a minute, joined, still, breathing into each other's mouths. Then I began to move, slowly testing the stretch, letting the pressure build. His head dropped to my shoulder. He swore under his breath. It was different, not like the back seat, not rushed, not dark. This was full, raw, too much. He held my hips, trying to control the rhythm, but I wouldn't let him. I moved slow, steady, my body shaking with every inch. His fingers dug into my skin. His mouth opened against my shoulder like he couldn't form words anymore. When I tightened around him, he let out something between a moan and a broken laugh. You're killing me, he whispered. I know. He came first, tried to hold back, failed. His body bucked under me. He bit down on my shoulder, not hard, but enough to leave something behind. I followed, harder than I expected, longer than I wanted. My legs gave out and I collapsed against his chest, still shaking. We stayed like that, his arms around me, my face buried in his neck. Neither of us said anything. Eventually, I pulled away. My legs were weak, my heart still racing. He helped me clean up, gave me space to dress, didn't push. And when he finally turned to leave the room, he hesitated. That wasn't just physical, he said. I looked up. I know, I said. He nodded and left. And I sat alone on the edge of the bed, feeling everything I hadn't felt in years flood through me at once. Need, regret, relief, shame. But under all of it, I felt alive again. The morning after, everything looked the same coffee mug in the sink, the same socks kicked under the couch, the same quiet drip from the bathroom faucet I still hadn't fixed. But I wasn't the same. I moved slower, watched myself too closely, like I could spot the evidence on my own skin before someone else did. I could still feel him, the way he moved inside me, the way he held my face afterward, like he couldn't believe I'd let him touch me like that. The way his scent lingered on my sheets long after he left, it didn't feel like a dream. It felt remembered. But the guilt set in fast. When my husband texted from his trip, just a simple "miss you, babe," I stared at it like it was a question I couldn't answer. I typed "miss you too" and deleted it 3 times before I finally sent it. When my son texted later that day to say they'd gotten rained out and were coming home a day early, I nearly dropped my phone. I stripped the guest bed twice, washed everything, changed the pillowcases, even though they didn't smell like him anymore. But I did. I couldn't look at myself in the bathroom mirror without flinching because the age difference didn't feel abstract anymore. It felt carved into my body. I was a grown woman with responsibilities, stretch marks, reminders of a life spent reminding myself that I wasn't someone men noticed anymore, not like that. And then Ethan walked in like a dare I didn't know I'd take. And I took it. I didn't see him for 3 days. But I thought about him every time I walked down the hall, every time I passed the couch, every time my husband called and I smiled with teeth but not eyes. When Ethan finally came back, casual, just another drop-in to grab a charger or whatever excuse he gave, he barely looked at me, but he lingered, in the kitchen, in the hallway, at the edge of conversations. He waited until my husband was upstairs before he said it, not to me exactly, just loud enough. That night wasn't a mistake. I said nothing, he didn't press, but the tension between us was back, thick and undeniable. I started avoiding rooms when he was in them, pretending to be busy, making up reasons to go to bed early or leave the house altogether. I couldn't be near him without remembering how he tasted, how he filled me, how young he looked when he smiled, and still how right it felt when he held me. That contradiction started pulling me apart. One night, I walked into the laundry room and he was there, crouched beside the washer,